So hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of the Python tutorial series. In this video we'll be looking at conditions and loops, two very important parts of programming. But before we get started, I'd ask that you please subscribe, turn on notifications, and like the video. It supports me and you'll know when the next video in the series comes out. So with that, let's get started. Now we'll start off by creating our next project, Python tutorial 2. We can do conditions and loops. Okay, so conditions and loops. So why don't we start off with conditions? So the condition we will be talking about is if statements. So if statements is where you say, if something happens, then do this. So say number is equal to 10. Now we can say if number is equal to 10. Remember that if you're doing equal, you have to do double equal signs. When you do one equal, it means set the variable number to 10. But if you do 2, that means you're comparing the two. So if number is equal to 10, print the number is 10. So as we can see here, when we run this, it says the number is 10. What's happening is that it is able to see number is 10, and then it's saying if the number is equal to 10, which it is, then print number is 10. Now say we change this to 11. Then we can say else print the number is not 10. The number is not 10. So what's going to happen now is, because the number is not 10, we can say take all the other arguments and say number, we can take all the other things. So say number was 20, say number was 1 million. It'll enter here, the number is not 10. We run this, number is not 10. Now, what if there is other arguments? What if the number is 15? So then we could say if number is equally, well, then we have to do the else if function, elif. Now this function will be another argument, another condition in the if statements. If it doesn't go through here, well then it'll go through here. And if it doesn't go through here, then it'll go through the else. So elif number is equal to 12, then print the number is equal to 12. Number is equal to 12. So we run this. Sorry, I forgot to change this. We run this and we get the number is equal to 12, just as we wanted it. Now, if statements are very important in programming because you often do not know what the user is inputting. So these if statements help you figure out what they're inputting and your response based on their input. So how about we take some input now? So let's say, so I hope you guys remember how to take input from last class, but we first have to assign a variable. So we can name ours input. So when naming variables, you have to remember that you cannot name it functions or numbers. Input is a function, so we cannot name our variable input. We can name it input1 though, And it's important to name your variables well. Don't do A or B or C. No, it's important to name your variables based on what it actually does. So input 1 is equal to int, because it's an integer input, int input, and then we can say input a number. But we have to remember that there is no longer a variable called number. Now it's called input 1. Input 1. Run this and put a number. Well, we can start off with, say, 12. The number is equal to 12. What happened is it went through if input 1 is equal to 10. It's not. Let's move on to our else if statements. Else if input 1 is equal to 12, which it is, print the number is equal to 12. If we run this again and say the number is 100, the number is not 10. That's what we said. Else, if none of these conditions are true, then print the number is not 10. So this method of if statements and conditions are very important in programming. So now let's move on to while loops. So for example, let's say we're doing print 1. Now, is it smart to just go copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste? No, it's not. Sure, you'll get your 5 digits, but it's not a very efficient way of programming. While loops let you say, alright, well, take while, say, 5, while I is greater than 0, print 1. So what's going to happen here? Oh, wait, where did the print statement go? Sorry. Alright, what's going to happen here is that it's going to print 1 while I is less than 5. But first we have to assign what I is. So we can say I is 0. So it'll start off, and then we have to, at the end we have to say I plus 1. So what's going to happen is while I is less than 5. So right now I is 0. So 0 is less than 5, yes, so print 1. So I plus 1. So now I is 1. 1 is less than 5, yes, so print 1. Now I is 2. 2 is less than 5, yes, print 1. Now I is 3. 3 is less than 5, yes, print 1. Now I is 4. 4 is less than 5, yes, print 1. Now I is 5. Well, 5 is not less than 5, so it no longer prints 1. So if we run this, what happened there was I is plus, so I said I plus 1. So sure, I plus 1, but what happens to I plus 1? So you have to assign its variable. You have to say I is equal to I plus 1, because otherwise, well, who knows, where are you storing I plus 1? Sure, it may happen, but it's not getting stored anywhere. So you have to say I is equal to I plus 1. Now, sure, now we get our 5 ones. So this way, you're able to condense your code, and it is easier for you to repeat a task. So while we're in this while loop, I'd like to introduce you to lists. Lists, arrays, they mean the same thing if you've heard them other places. So a list is, well, to be honest, it is the same as a shopping list. You have a list of different objects inside it. So let's say our list will be called list 1. Again, list is a variable, so we cannot name it list. So list 1. List 1 is equal to, now to name a list, you have to use the square brackets. And what you have to do in a list is say, so then you want to separate each part of the list with a comma. So list 1, say we have apple, now we have to put a comma, banana, comma, and pear. So now in our list we have 3 items. So what we can do here, alright, let's add 2 more items to this list. Let's get 5 items. Pear, orange, and mango. I like mangoes. So instead of saying print 1, now we can be a little smarter about what we want to say. We could say print list 1 and in brackets I. So remember how we're saying I plus 1. So when you are making a list, this is calling what item in the list. So right now I is 0. So when it goes in here, it's going to say list I, print the 0th value inside this list. So in programming, numbers do not start, items in lists do not start off at 1. They start off at 0. So it's going to say list 1, 0. Well, it's going to print apple. Now I plus 1, 2. So now it's going to, 1. Now it's going to print the item 1 in the list. So it's going to print the second item, banana. Now as you keep going, it will print the next part of the list. So if we run this, see, we get our whole list because it's doing I plus 1. Apple, banana, pear, oranges, mangoes. Lists can be very useful in doing what you would like to say. So now let's move on to for loops. So for loops are so you have to take a value, say for I in range 4. So this one is arguably better for when you're using lists. So you have to make sure you use your semicolon afterwards, for I in range 4. So this means do this task 4 times. Let me add another list. So shopping or number list. We're making our list and say we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now over here we can say for I in range 4, print number list, and then in brackets print number list, and then in brackets we write I. So and now in for loops you do not have to put the I is equal to I plus 1 because it'll automatically do that because you're saying for I in range 4. So here it'll print 1, 2, 3, 4 just as we want it. 1, 2, 3, 4 because what's happening is it's going in. Alright, for I in range 4. So first time we're going in. Print number list I. So I starts off as 0 unless you name it otherwise. So it'll print the 0th item, 0th index in the list, which is 1. Alright, well it printed 1. It printed 1. Now it'll go in 2. So 1. So now it'll print the first index in the list, which is, remember, 0 first. So now it'll print 2, and so on until it gets to the 4th. So the project that you guys can make for this tutorial is a calculator. So in calculators, you may not need to use so much while and for loops, but you will need to use if statements and variables. So I would recommend you do this project. If you have questions, just put it in the comments and I will get to them as quickly as possible. So that is going to wrap up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, please subscribe, turn on notifications, like the video, and I'll get back to you next week. Bye!